This man didn't eat or sleep. Day and night he only knew one thing: swinging his sword. He kept this up for 37 years, until his body finally collapsed beside his blade. When he woke up, he found himself in the body of a young noble. It turned out that it was all just a dream, but everything felt far too real. He could still feel it, the lingering taste of sweat, the memory of screaming muscles. An intense desire ignited within Eren. He had to swing a sword, right now. Hearing this, his butler was utterly stunned. He told the young master it wasn't a funny joke. After all, Eren was famous for being the lazy lord. Haunted by his mother's death, he had spent 15 years doing nothing but eating and sleeping, never once stepping out of his room. So for Eren to suddenly want to swing a sword, it was a shock to everyone. When he walked into the training hall, he immediately chose the great sword, leaving everyone speechless. Some soldiers even pinched their own faces to make sure they weren't dreaming. His frail, weak body struggled to even lift the blade. The soldiers started placing bets, certain the weakling would collapse in 3 minutes flat. Even the butler advised him that wielding a great sword was beyond exhausting and that the young master should rest. But Eren refused to give up. With every single swing, pain tore through his muscles, yet he felt a strange sense of tranquility. By repeating the motions from his dream, he could finally cast off the heavy burden, weighing down his heart. This feeling drove Eren to continue, until the butler was forced to stop him. Without him realizing, night had already fallen. Eren's body gave out, completely drained of strength. That night, he felt the foolishness of his actions. His entire body screamed in agony. How could he possibly sleep like this? But 5 minutes later, Eren was dead asleep, true to his title as the Lazy Lord. Over the next few days, he trained relentlessly and ate more to build his strength. His non-stop training soon caught everyone's attention. Even his genius younger sister, Kiri, came to see him. She urged him to stop this foolishness, that swordsmanship couldn't be mastered overnight. She begged him to quit, but her stepmother stopped her. Before leaving, she told him to take care of his health. That same night, Kiri snuck to his room to apologize. In a letter, she used her magic to create a helpful doll for him, confessing that she truly cared. This made Eren realize that for the past 10 years, he had been a lazy fool, blind to the love his family had for him. The very next day, he decided to eat with everyone, no longer isolating himself in his room. Father, mother, Kiri. Thank you. I've always wanted to say this. Thank you for caring for someone who did nothing but lie around all day. I'm sorry, and I love you all. Their faces lit up with joy. Eren had finally opened his heart. His father saw the change in him, all starting from when he first picked up a sword. He reminded his son not to overdo it. In the days that followed, Eren followed his father's advice by swinging his sword for 15 days without rest, stunning everyone. An old sorcerer had been watching him from afar. He could sense it in the boy, a will of steel, unshakable by anything in this world. It was like a blacksmith forging his own body. For a 15-year-old to possess such a powerful will, this was a genius among geniuses. When the old man heard from a guard that the boy's only teacher was a dream, he knew he couldn't let this priceless gem be wasted. He went directly to Eren and declared him a genius of the sword. He offered him a letter of recommendation to the 𝒀𝒆�𝒏𝒈𝒆𝒂𝒏 Academy, the best swordsmanship school on the continent. It accepted only the most talented prodigies, regardless of their status. Its reputation far surpassed even the Royal Academy, but the competition there would be brutal. His father was worried, but after a long night of contemplation, Eren made his decision. He would attend the 𝒀𝒆💂💏💈𝒂𝒏 Academy. The next day, he set off. His sister Kiri gave him a necklace, wishing for her brother's safety. On the road, other nobles recognized him as the infamous Lazy Lord and immediately looked down on him. But with the recommendation letter, he quickly passed through the gates and into the entrance examination hall. Countless people were already there. 400 prospective students were about to begin their year-long entrance exam. The instructor immediately spotted a few promising faces. The most prominent was Ilya Lindsay, the second genius of the Lindsay family. All of them would have to pass this trial to become official students. The instructor led them to a large field for the first test, an endurance run. Everyone took off at full speed. The most pathetic sight, however, was Eren, who had already collapsed. His heart felt like it would burst, but he refused to give up. Just like the man in his dream, he was no longer the useless, lazy waste he used to be. But a will of steel wasn't enough. His body finally hit its limit, and he passed out. When he awoke, he was in the recovery room. The results of the endurance test were in. Eren ranked number 1 from the bottom. The next day, the instructor announced the training schedule. For everyone, it was just eating and training. But for Eren, weapons were forbidden. That evening, in the weight training room, everyone was pushing themselves hard. Ilya was there too, and you shouldn't let her delicate appearance fool you. Her strength was monstrous. Seeing her train put the other boys to shame, but when they looked over at Irin, they burst out laughing. Lifting even an empty barbell was enough to make him feel half dead. Nearby was Judith, the girl who ranked second in the endurance test. Even though she was a commoner, her power was immense, and she wasn't afraid of any arrogant noble. The guys who tried to bother her nearly lost the teeth they'd need to eat porridge. Just then, the top-ranked student, Ilya, started a private conversation with Irin, stunning the room. He instantly became a thorn in everyone's side. The red-haired girl immediately walked over. She demanded to know what Ilya had said to him. He was just getting instructions on the equipment, but she didn't seem to believe it. They even suspected he had a prior connection to Ilya. What a wild accusation. Still, he knew he was handsome. Soon after, a blue-haired noble came over to question him as well, demanding to know what he discussed with Judith. These people were ridiculously nosy. And so, 1 month passed. Everyone's physical abilities had increased dramatically. The only one who received Ilya's special attention, however, was our lazy lord. She often showed him the basics of training, but she still suspected he'd gotten in through connections. Just like that, 3 months flew by. Everyone trained hard in their own way. And slowly, they began to realize the lazy lord was nothing like the rumors. His diligence and effort were unmatched by anyone, and soon, their midterm exam was upon them. The trial was set. Every cadet had to conquer the course before the deadline, a brutal test of running and swimming. For the top 5 prospects, a special reward awaited them. Both Red and Judith were training relentlessly, but after witnessing Irin, they pushed themselves even harder. They sensed a threat, a frail-looking boy with a terrifyingly unbreakable will. And Irin felt the shift. Those who once mocked and ignored him were now watching with caution. Still, he couldn't understand why Ilya was helping him. She didn't exactly seem like the friendly type. The next day, the midterm exam began. Phase 1. Pushing the weights. Unsurprisingly, Ilya finished first. But in a turn that shocked everyone, Irin finished right after her. How could that lazy noble be so strong? Immediately, the whispers started. They laughed, saying he'd collapse if he kept pushing so recklessly. However, their scorn only fueled Irin's fire. He felt his body heat up, but it wasn't exhaustion. It was power awakening. His speed only increased. While everyone else was still stuck on Phase 1, he had already blazed through the second part of the test. They could only call him a monster. Phase 3 was a long-distance run. Irin was right behind Ilya, and a powerful urge to surpass her took over. His speed instantly surged, but Ilya wasn't one to be trifled with. She matched his pace, accelerating as well. Suddenly, both of them froze. Judith had just blown past them at an unbelievable speed. As a commoner, she had fought tooth and nail to get here. She would never give up. For a moment, she claimed the top spot. Phase 4 began, the swimming portion. Judith's stamina finally gave out. As Ilya passed her, she couldn't continue. Her body began to sink to the bottom of the lake, but just as she lost hope, Irin was there to save her. After pulling her to safety, he dived back in to finish his own test. The final results were in. Despite the rescue, Irin ranked 34th out of 35 candidates. A boy named Brat managed to secure the second spot, but he knew the truth. He had lost to Irin. If Irin hadn't stopped to save Judith, that rank would have been his. He might have even fallen to 4th. The next day, Ilya confronted him, asking why he'd saved Judith. She knew perfectly well a teacher would have intervened eventually. Not only that, she reminded him Judith was one of the very people who had looked down on and mocked him. But Irin simply stated that saving someone doesn't require a reason. That's just the kind of person he was, take it or leave it. With that, she suddenly turned her back on him, declaring she wouldn't help him train anymore. Her sudden change left him completely bewildered. He asked why she'd helped him in the first place. Was it his looks? His family's wealth? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe I just hate people who whisper about others when they know nothing about them. The next day, the official midterm results were posted. 35 candidates passed the first evaluation, and 78 passed the second. In total, 113 students had succeeded. The top 5 from the first evaluation would receive their reward after a private meeting with the swordmaster. To everyone's surprise, Irin was also called to the stage. The legendary swordmaster praised him, declaring that he sacrificed his own standing when he could have fallen into the abyss himself. And because of that selfless act, he saved a drowning friend. His actions were worthy of recognition, and he deserved the same reward as the top 5. Each of them was granted a single request. The others asked for advice or a personal lesson in swordsmanship, but Irin asked the master for advice on how to make up with someone. The question left the old man baffled. It turned out he wanted to reconcile with Ilya, but being an introverted boy, had no idea how. The swordmaster eventually gave him some useful advice. He then asked if 𝒀𝒏 had any questions about the sword, but the boy knew so little he didn't even know what to ask, leaving the master speechless. As 𝒀𝒏 left, a thought crossed the master's mind. That boy knows nothing of the sword, he mused, yet he holds no fear or anxiety. It's as if he's being guided by some unseen hand. That afternoon, Judith found 𝒂𝒏 to express her gratitude. She then proposed that they train and eat together from now on. To make sure he couldn't refuse, she landed a painful punch on his arm. Truly, girls were a mystery. A few days later, their first sword practice began. For the next 2 hours, they were free to use the training grounds. Choose a wooden sword, the instructor announced. Treat it as an extension of your body. Even though it was just wood, it felt completely different from before. Months of grueling physical training had strengthened their bodies immeasurably. But then, 𝒂𝒏 walked towards the massive greatsword. He lifted it and swung, sending a shockwave of disbelief through the crowd. His form was crude, but it was almost a perfect, standard swing. The green-haired prodigy, Brat, saw this and could no longer hold back. He stepped forward and challenged 𝒀𝒏 to a duel. No one, including 𝒀𝒏 himself, understood what was happening. But after seeing the swordmaster give a subtle nod of approval, 𝒂𝒏 accepted. The master himself would serve as the referee. The match began. Brat exploded forward, attacking with blinding speed, but his twin swords were blocked by 𝒂𝒏's massive blade. It became a dance of offense versus defense. Brat had to admit, the boy's reaction speed wasn't half bad. However, his balance while wielding the greatsword was atrocious. His posture and footwork were a complete mess. In stark contrast, 𝒀𝒏's raw physical power was immense, but raw strength alone was not enough to defeat Brat. The green-haired prodigy was declared the winner of the match. Afterwards, the instructor evaluated each student's swordsmanship. He assigned them to classes based on their skill. Class A was for the elites. The rest were placed in the lower-ranked B and C classes. 𝒂𝒏, however, was placed in a class all by himself, Class F. Judith was furious. She swore that if she ever got the chance, she would make that green-haired punk pay for what he did to her friend. The next day, the Class F instructor began teaching 𝒂𝒏 the absolute basics of swordsmanship. Right now, besides swinging wildly, the only thing 𝒂𝒏 knew how to cut was the wind. The instructor told him bluntly, "Hard work alone can't compare to the talent of those at the top. If you can master these basic techniques within a week, I'll move you to Class C. But if you fail," he warned before leaving, "you'll remain in Class F, and if it turns out you have no talent at all, I suggest you just leave the academy." After 6 days of relentless training, the instructor was stunned by 𝒂𝒏's progress. He had to acknowledge the boy's monstrous talent for the sword. "This is something I could never do. In return, I'll teach you how to properly use a sword. I'd be happy if we became a team for a short while. We can grow stronger together." The offer shocked everyone, as Brat was not known for his kindness. 𝒀𝒏 accepted his proposal. Brat tried to copy 𝒂𝒏's training regimen, but the difference between them remained. He slowly realized that while they both had the same amount of time to practice, the density of how they used that time was on a completely different level. From the moment training began until it ended, 𝒂𝒏 never lost his focus for a single second. Brat had to know how he did it. Before he left, he gave 𝒀𝒏 a final piece of advice. "Don't underestimate yourself," he said. "You really are a genius." As a high noble, Brat's skills were undeniable. That afternoon, he guided 𝒂𝒏 in the ways of the sword, and the boy's progress was nothing short of explosive. After receiving her gift, even Ilya no longer ignored him. That night, 𝒂𝒏 dreamt of the mysterious man again, but this time, the feeling of the sword in his hand was terrifyingly real. It was as if he was times that man. Unwilling to lose the sensation, 𝒂𝒏 swung his sword all through the night until he collapsed from exhaustion. But moments later, he would rise again, practice a few swings, and fall asleep once more. It was a bizarre cycle that made Brat incredibly curious. 𝒂𝒏 claimed he was training his focus, but the green-haired boy thought he was meditating. He tried to mimic 𝒂𝒏, but the only result was a very, very deep sleep. With the help of Judith and Brat, 𝒂𝒏 quickly ascended to B class, his progress astonishing. Inspired, Brat even took up meditating himself. Days later, he managed to defeat Ines, leaving her utterly speechless. It was all thanks to his meditation. Now, his next target was the server's #1 ranker, 𝒀𝒏. The next day, the old swordmaster summoned everyone. 9 months had passed since they arrived. Throughout their training, they had endured grueling evaluations and torturous practice. Many among them had grown far stronger than before. Now, it was time for the final assessment. Unlike the midterms, this wasn't a test of skill at a fixed point in time. This would be an evaluation of each person's hidden potential. It sounded abstract, but the instructions were simple. Prove your capabilities. Show them the one thing you do best in swordsmanship. a special skill, an ultimate technique, anything of that sort. To conclude, the master demonstrated his own sword art. The slashes were as sharp and light as the wind, yet they carried devastating power. He hoped they would learn something valuable for their own paths. Brat and Judith also aimed for the top spot, but it felt like an impossible dream. The Lindsay family was considered one of the most prestigious sword families in existence, and she was their heir. But Judith scoffed at the name. "What's so great about that family?" she sneered. Her brother, the so-called greatest genius on the continent, was defeated by a common orphan. Now he's too scared to face anyone. Unbeknownst to them, Ilya heard every word. Fury blazed in her eyes. "It doesn't matter if you curse me or look down on my family, even if you all gossip behind my back. It won't change a thing. I will remain at the top of this academy." Meanwhile, Aaron was still stuck in his meditation, with no results. He even tried thinking about money while swinging his sword, but nothing worked. He felt trapped. The final exam was only 15 days away. Judith then told him her story. She was an orphan who had to fight and steal on the streets just to survive. Getting here had taken every ounce of her strength. After nearly a year, she had changed so much. He realized he had too. He was no longer the lazy noble. He was truly grateful for everything, for Judith, Brat, Ilya, the swordmaster, and the instructors. Now, it was time to repay them with everything he'd learned. Arn raised his sword, his focus sharper than ever before. 2 weeks later, the final exam began. Everyone demonstrated their unique sword skills. Some sliced through wind, others cut through stone. Soon, it was Judith's turn. She requested her test be a duel against Brat. This way, the strengths of both could be revealed. The swordmaster accepted. The two instantly clashed, their power absolutely terrifying. Everyone watching was shaken. They knew they were not their opponents. Judith was more ferocious than usual today. She was determined to win. Both combatants were brilliant, showcasing incredible sword techniques. But the battle was decided quickly. After a furious assault, Judith's sword shattered. Brat was the victor. The swordmaster praised them both highly. The next candidate was Ilya. She would use her famlet legendary blade, the Heavenly Sword, which once slew the Demon Dragon King. As she drew her sword, the very wind began to move. An immense power radiated from her, crushing the will of anyone who dared challenge her for the top spot. Even the masters were stunned. They never imagined Ilya had become so powerful. Brat realized the gap between them was an unbreakable wall. The final person to be tested was Aaron. He declared he would demonstrate his vertical slash. This sent a shockwave through the crowd. Some even called him a madman. To perform such a basic move in this all-important exam? It was the sentiment of everyone present. They couldn't understand what he was thinking. Arn entered a meditative state, focusing his breath and delving into his subconscious. He saw the man from his dreams, swinging his sword. They both swung their blades to become stronger, through sheer, indomitable will. At that moment, he unleashed a single vertical slash of horrifying power, splitting the arena floor in two. Everyone was left speechless. The swordmaster was frozen in shock. After a long moment, the results were finally in. He announced the rankings one by one. Judith placed fourth, while Brat took third. Second place went to Aaron. And first place, to no one's surprise, was Ilya. She approached him after the test. "It's been a long time since I felt like someone was chasing me," she said, referring to his terrifying sword path. Not some simple crush. His display made her see him as an interesting person. She then revealed she wouldn't be staying. Her only goal was to claim the top spot in the midterm and final exams, then return to her family. Then, she told him about her older brothers, one of whom was hailed as the continent's strongest genius. "When I was 6 years old," she began, "there wasn't a soul on the continent who didn't know my brother's name. He became famous through his duels with knights. With his transcendent talent, he reached a peak that others his age couldn't even dream of. He was acknowledged by the most famous figures and quickly earned the title of #1 prodigy. He even took the highest rank at the 𝒀𝒏𝒆𝒂𝒓𝒔 Academy, but he refused to become an official student. And then, the continent's second genius established a mercenary group at the age of 14. That person was Ines. She requested a duel with my brother. The result, after just 3 attacks, my brother was defeated. The image of the invincible genius was shattered before her eyes. The gazes of the world were all fixed on him. In the end, he could never recover. He locked himself in his room, refusing to see even his own sister. From that day on, Ilya made a vow. She would become the strongest. She would defeat Ines and avenge her brother. But all this time, she had grown tired of chasing someone else's shadow. Faced with Aaron's overwhelming swordsmanship, 𝒂𝒏𝒔 stood on the precipice of despair. He decided to surrender, his spirit crushed by the impossible gap between them. How could a mere novice who just picked up a sword wield such power? All his years of blood, sweat, and tears felt utterly meaningless. Hearing this, Judith exploded. She slammed her fist right into his jaw. If he, the one she couldn't even beat, gave up, then what hope did she have? You should be proud of how far you've come. Don't you dare run from your fear. Face it head on and tear it apart. The following day, the swordmaster began his one-on-one interviews. He looked straight at Eren. What is your reason for wielding the sword? The master sensed it immediately. This boy was not walking the path of his own free will. For a swordsman of his caliber, he felt absolutely no passion, no fire. When other students like Brest made progress, they were ecstatic. Even when consumed by fear of being surpassed and lashing out in blind rage, every other student felt the turbulent emotions of their journey. But Eren, he felt nothing at all. Are you simply imitating someone else? Eren had to admit it was true. Then, if you have no reason to swing your sword, the master declared, you have no place here. He ordered Eren to bring a drop of blood for official registration. But for the next year's class, he was given 1 year to find his own reason, his own path of the sword. Before returning to his family's domain, Eren said goodbye to Ilya. She pressed her family's crest into his palm, a symbol that would allow him to find her any time. Judith's eyes lit up at the sight of the shimmering emblem. Hey, what's that flashy thing? Give me one too. After being relentlessly pestered, Ilya finally gave in and handed one to Judith. She also apologized for her harsh words before. Break, too, announced he was leaving the academy, vowing to become stronger so they could meet again as equals. Eren thanked him sincerely. Every time I swing my sword, I feel truly alive. It's hard to explain. But a year ago, something inside me changed. I trained for that reason. I came to this academy to truly face my past, learn from myself, and move forward. And it's all because I met you. The words hung heavy in the air. Eren shouted after him, Break! Let's get stronger for our next meeting. Yet, a strange premonition washed over him, a feeling that they would never meet again. The family butler had arrived to take him home, leaving only Judith behind. But suddenly, a figure returned from the path. It was Brest. Eren's words had ignited a new fire within him, giving him the confidence to face his own swordsmanship. Judith gave him a hard time, but he knew she was happy. At least she wouldn't be alone anymore. In Eren's carriage, the butler assumed his master was dejected for not being officially accepted into the academy. So, he led him to an oracle to see his destiny. But the old man was stunned the moment he saw Eren, asking his age in disbelief. He couldn't believe Eren was only 16. If you follow the path of the sword, he proclaimed, you are destined to become a great sword master. This proclamation only made the old butler scoff. But before they left, the oracle handed Eren a small piece of paper. When events do not unfold as you wish, open this. It will aid you. As Eren walked away, the oracle's eyes narrowed in thought. He isn't physically imposing, yet his body moves with perfect mastery. More than that, there is a colossal energy growing inside of him. To possess such power at 16, it's unbelievable. At that moment, Eren opened the small note. Standing alone does not mean you are lonely. The words confused him. Eren then explained to his butler that he times accepted. His formal enrollment was simply delayed. Just then, the carriage of the Gheghen family, their sworn rivals, approached. They had always looked down on him, but etiquette demanded they stop to exchange greetings. They couldn't believe their eyes. The lazy noble they once knew had transformed completely. He was almost a different person. The Gheghen heir immediately started running his mouth. You must have been kicked out of the academy already. But Eren's cold indifference only infuriated him more. Before leaving, he demanded a handshake to test Eren's strength. But when their hands clasped, he couldn't make Eren budge an inch, deluded by his own pitiful power. The moment Eren applied the slightest bit of force, the heir squealed like a castrated pig, yet still tried to talk tough. The humiliation was absolute. Suddenly, a cat appeared. A talking cat! Why didn't you just smash that weakling's face in? It asked nonchalantly. This was no mere animal, but a sorcerer, a wielder of miracles. They decided to retreat immediately. Antagonizing a sorcerer was suicide. Our apologies for our disrespectful actions. Esteemed sorcerer, we shall take our leave now. If you are still displeased, please visit our gay grand estate. The tiny cat stood on its hind legs and pulled a miniature sword from a tiny pouch. It began boasting about its grand swordsmanship, making everyone stare in disbelief. After that bizarre encounter, Eren finally returned home, telling his parents about the cat. They knew exactly who it was, a sorcerer named Jozu, a cat with the intelligence of a human and power greater than any sorcerer in the capital. 10 days earlier, Jozu had visited with an absurd proposal. It wanted to become their times master. They checked the Sorcerers Association for information, but found nothing. His sister, Kiri, immediately demanded his opinion on the matter. But Iran knew nothing of sorcerers and couldn't understand why his cluelessness made her so angry. He quickly took out a gift to soothe his little sister's temper, a move prompted by his butler, Michael. At that moment, the bizarre cat appeared out of thin air. "It was here," it announced, "to convince her brother Iran to become its time's disciple." The suggestion was so outrageous it sent Kiri into a rage, and she stormed out. Iran had to chase after her to calm her down. Who knew this cat was so good at acting cute? Later, Iran told them everything that had happened. He told them all about the 𝒀𝒏𝒂𝒓𝒔𝒄 Academy. And of course, he didn't forget to give his parents their gifts. A simple present, yet their faces lit up with pure joy. It seemed to make them even happier than his acceptance into the academy. Asterisk. For a normal family, this might be a small thing. But seeing them this happy. Asterisk. Asterisk. It's both heartwarming and painful. I cannot delay my quest to find my own path of the sword. Asterisk. In another estate, the head of the rival family noticed his youngest son's strange behavior. He found out the boy was completely humbled during his encounter with Irene. Hearing of this change, the old man's deep-seated jealousy flared brighter than ever. He had always envied Irene's father for his beautiful wife, his noble demeanor, a daughter who was a sorcerer, and his ever-prospering lands. He decided he had to deal with Irene before the boy had a chance to rise. His eldest son, Riel, the head of the 6 great noble families of the south, stepped forward to take on the task. With the 2 kingdoms of Perina on the brink of conflict, they vow to drag that useless young master back through the mud once more, despite his reputation for being cunning and dangerous. The next day, soldiers were stunned to see Irene up and training even before they were, despite having just returned from a long journey. They whispered about how he'd been kicked out of the Knight Academy, assuming that's why he was here. But when they tried to lift his weights, these seasoned soldiers couldn't even budge them. Even Knight Ozone was in complete shock at the young master's powerful new physique. He was no longer the weak boy from before, and now he was doing pull-ups with weights strapped to his body. It was insane. The knight tried to brush it off, muttering that he could do such simple skills too. But when he saw Irene holding a perfect horizontal lever, he quickly buried that thought. Just then, Irene noticed Zuzu grooming itself nearby, certain the cat was there to persuade him to help it. It wanted him to put in a good word with his sister. But Irene paid it no mind. He had to discover his own swordsmanship, not just mimic the style of that man forever. A week later, everyone training with Irene realized he was an absolute beast. They could barely keep up with his monstrous stamina. His diligence also earned everyone's admiration. But for Irene, this still wasn't enough. They were all patiently learning at the prestigious Knight Academy, while he was training completely alone, without any guidance. That just meant he had to push himself even harder. And that fat cat, Zuzu, had been observing him for over a week. What was it thinking? The soldiers carefully warned him that the cat was a mysterious creature, rumored to bring misfortune to everyone around it. It was like a walking curse, so that was why everyone avoided the poor cat. Curious, Irene asked Zuzu if it wanted his help, but it didn't say a word. Instead, it just watched him train, with an arrogant look on its face. Annoying teachers is fun, but with you, I'm not interested. You're about as exciting as a rock in some distant valley. Here, I'll give you a gift. You can call it a bribe if you want. Zuzu produced a priceless cat's eye stone, making the butler's jaw drop. Its value could buy a quarter of the entire Ɓăraia family territory. In exchange, Irene would have to sing its praises in front of Kiri. Anything to convince that girl, Zuzu declared, and I'll give you treasures even more valuable. Irene was curious. Why do you want my sister as your student so badly? Why offer me these priceless items? Zuzu's answer was simple. Because I like her, that's all. It then began showing off its incredible treasures. This wooden ball has an intoxicating scent you can't find anywhere else. And this foxtail holds the memories of my childhood before I learned sorcery. And this doll, I got it from another stray cat. These were artifacts that no amount of money could ever buy. The 2 men could only stand there, dumbfounded. This cat was completely insane. Irene flatly rejected Zuzu's bribe. Instead, he would tell his sister his true feelings about the cat. The next day, Zuzu frantically summoned him for an emergency. It turned out the cat just wanted him to watch it eat because it felt anxious being alone during meals. As if that was so important. A day later, Zuzu was panicking again over another crisis. This time, it had a crush on a nearby female cat, but was too shy to make a move. It even asked Irene if he knew what the other cat was thinking, despite being a powerful sorcerer who could read minds. With a goofy look, it complained, "How can a cat like me possibly read the mind of another cat?" The absurdity of it made Irene burst out laughing. This cat was a true comedian, but in the middle of their pleasant chat, Irene suddenly stood up to train. He didn't have time for this. He needed to find his reason for learning the sword, and he needed to find it as soon as possible. He swung his sword in the pouring rain, lost and unsure of what to do. At that moment, Zuzu saw the phantom of that man overlapping with Iron's body. The cat immediately rushed forward, offering to become his master. It unleashed an overwhelming pressure, completely different from its usual self. Despite its serious intent, its face was still comical. "Let me show you everything about it. Come with me to the fascinating world of magic." But Iron refused. He was a swordsman, not a sorcerer. Zuzu slowly explained, "You don't understand anything. From the very beginning, no one is better suited for sorcery than a swordsman with a powerful will. Through this, you can find the one influencing your blade. Do you know the difference between a magical swordsman, a mage, and a sorcerer? All martial artists, including swordsmen, focus on their own bodies, the inner cosmos. Through constant tempering and training, they learn to wield a mysterious power, an endless aura. In contrast, mages focus on their external environment, the outer cosmos. They analyze the mystic power found in all creation, which they call mana, and they strive to understand the principles, logic, and laws of the world. As for sorcerers, they are often called the wicked ones, who shatter all rules to fulfill their own desires. They are extraordinary beings who can turn their every wish into reality. They possess a will so strong it can change the world itself, and a unique, brilliant mind that ordinary people can't even fathom. In other words, a sorcerer's power is directly proportional to their willpower. In short, with my help, you can awaken the magic sleeping inside you. It will be incredibly useful for your swordsmanship. Yet, Iron still refused. To put it simply, it's hard to explain, but this sword is not my own. He told Zuzu about his mysterious dreams, how it felt like he was being possessed by someone else. Finally, Zuzu told him the blunt, hard truth. Everything you've done until now. It wasn't true effort. To be honest, it was nothing more than a futile struggle. The words left Iron completely baffled. The next day, the butler arrived with news of an impending battle. In a few days, the Southern Union's war council would be held at their estate, and the family head wished to speak with the young master. It would be best if you prepared yourself mentally, he advised. Also, there are some unsavory rumors about the fat cat, Zuzu, after it joined the Oracle Mages Guild. It's said that on the eastern continent, the guild collapsed right after Zuzu left. They say the second son of the Roshgan Lord died in a tragic accident. And the guildmaster of Songjan Bandani, who was once a merchant, said that soon after taking in a cat, his fortune was ruined. He warned Iron to be careful, but Zuzu had heard every word, hiding under the bed. It insisted it wasn't the culprit behind those incidents. It explained it was just passing through, and was coincidentally blamed as a source of bad luck. Hearing this, Iron understood. He knew all too well what it felt like to be targeted by vicious rumors. The lazy noble of the past was no more, and Lulu was determined to prove she wasn't some unlucky black cat, despite her dark fur. Touched by his words, she decided to give him a gift. A massive cat's eye stone. This is extremely valuable. Even better than the last one, and she didn't forget a little reminder. Once you take this, you have to tell everyone, I'm not evil. What a shameless little bribe. That afternoon, Aaron went to see his father. He had made his decision. He would join the monster subjugation. The danger was immense, but that couldn't stop him. A week later, they arrived at the grand meeting. All the noble families had gathered to prepare for battle. There, they met Viscount Finn again. Before arriving, the butler had warned Aaron to be wary of the other families. Most of them held no goodwill toward his house. As the host, Aaron's father began his speech, thanking everyone for dedicating their precious time to keep the southern trade routes safe. For the prosperity and peace of the southern families. To peace, a toast. This was the first time Aaron had ever attended such a lavish banquet. The way he held his glass was immediately mocked by everyone, especially the old Viscount Finn. He sneered that a noble must carry the air of a noble, not look like a commoner. They wanted to make him the laughingstock of the entire assembly. In the end, Aaron chose to run away. Although he was different now, he was completely unaware of the years of pain and humiliation his father and family had endured every time those vipers mocked him. He swung his sword with a burning fury to vent his stress, but those loud-mouthed dogs weren't done with him yet. Seeing him practice, they started taunting him, demanding a duel. Fine. If it's a fight you want, you'll get one. Their luck had just run out. One of them confidently stepped forward, sneering that a year of training was nothing. What can a novice like you possibly? He couldn't even finish his sentence. He was utterly defeated, nearly losing his life. Aaron turned to the remaining cowards and declared, "Who's next?" Their leader had to step forward himself. The moment the battle began, he unleashed a storm of attacks. Aaron was forced onto the defensive. But look at his face. Does he look even remotely concerned by these pathetic provocations? This time, Aaron would face the battlefield himself. He couldn't push this difficult task onto others anymore. But as he swung his sword, Lulu's voice rang out. That's just a useless effort. He decided then and there. He would learn sorcery from the chubby cat to become stronger. But not today, Lulu declared. You need to calm your mind first. We will begin tomorrow. The next day, Lulu appeared in his professor's outfit. He looked dignified, but also incredibly ridiculous. It was like some kind of pet-raising game. The first lesson was on faith. No matter how absurd the story, the power of sorcery grows stronger based on how much you believe in it. Primitive people worshipped giant rocks and the sun as gods, trying to grant their wishes through offerings. Faith is the most steadfast of all beliefs. However, sacrifices involving life almost always fall into the hands of demons. In short, Aaron was more suited for swordsmanship, fueled by intense desire. Lulu gave him a new task under contract. Swing the sword 1,000 times today with all your heart. By repeating actions tied to one's desires, the belief and power of the heart grow stronger. Unlike before, his swings now contained a profound purpose. And so, by the 10th lesson, he was completely exhausted with nothing to show for it. Doubt began to creep into his mind. Just then, the chubby cat appeared. The mind is not always constant. When the burning will you had at the beginning fades, the body feels heavier, and distracting thoughts multiply. At times like these, most thoughts tend to be negative. That's why you shouldn't do it alone. Do it with someone else. If you cannot believe in yourself, find someone who believes in you. And later, when that person is in trouble, repay the faith they gave you. The words struck a chord in his heart. Who on earth would ever believe in him? You're different now, Lulu said. Many people believe in you. Have confidence. He drifted off to sleep, his mind fixed on finding someone who believed in him. Suddenly, Kiri sensed a powerful mana from her brother's room and rushed over. She found Aaron inside the cat's eye stone Lulu had given him. Enraged, she demanded an explanation. Lulu had to confess. Aaron has entered his own mind to achieve his desire. He will continue his training in there, until he achieves a satisfactory result. He can leave as soon as he does. But I don't know when that will be. It could be tomorrow, a month, or even a year. Aaron had entered his dreamscape. He saw him, the man swinging the sword from his visions. But this time, the man stopped and stared right at him. Then, in a blinding flash of light, he vanished, leaving Aaron alone with the greatsword. This was magic perception, a world created from his own desires. It was the most perfect place to train a world made just for him. He was certain he could find his own path of the sword here. After a tiring day, night fell. Aaron wished for morning to come quickly so he could continue. Instantly, the sun rose. Spring arrived with blooming flowers, filling him with joy. Aaron could do anything in this world. He could change his clothes or summon a delicious feast. After a short rest, he prepared to train again. On his 5th day here, Aaron realized, no matter how many times he slept and woke, he couldn't escape. He could only leave once he achieved his goal, finding his own sword. And what was the connection between him and the man from his dream? Why did he appear at the moment he perceived sorcery? These were questions he couldn't yet answer. All he could do was focus on his swordsmanship. Yesterday was 2,000 swings. Today must be 3,000. And so, on day 211, in this place, Aaron realized he'd hit a plateau at 6,000 swings and couldn't increase it further. What was happening? Perhaps he'd gotten too comfortable with the environment and become complacent. Time passed. On day 353, his number of swings not only didn't increase, it started to drop. Maybe he was overworking himself. He needed a little rest for tomorrow. More time flowed by. On day 417, his swing count dropped even more. His hand was numb, and he couldn't continue training. On day 624, he no longer held the sword. Instead, he just slept in bed, just like when he was a child. Doubt consumed him. He started to take his failure for granted. Even the sword style he learned at the academy was just an imitation of that man. He had failed to find his own path of the sword. All this grueling training was just meaningless swinging. This is it. I'm done. He didn't even know how long he'd been here. If time here flows, the same as in reality. Haven't I wasted an immense amount of time? But soon, even that didn't matter. He would just be lazy again. Suddenly, he heard a familiar voice. It was the beautiful Ilya, calling him to get up and train. He trained alongside her. They ran together down a path that existed only in his mind. And when they returned to his spectral home, she would share a meal with him. But if he ever questioned how she got there, she would scold him relentlessly, drilling into him the discipline he had forgotten. And when the day ended, she would fade away, a phantom of his past. But this illusion brought him immense joy. Before he could even rest, Zoed appeared, dragging him out for more training, followed by Brek and Iria, bickering like always. In this world, everyone believed in him, and their faith was a crushing weight. He finally saw how weak and lazy he had been, failing the very people who had trusted him unconditionally. His body screamed in exhaustion, unable to take another step. But why? Why did he keep running? Because his comrades were there, running beside him, refusing to let him fall. His speed and stability gradually returned as he trained with them. He was no longer alone. So many people were putting their faith in him now. It was just like the oracle's note said, "Trust in yourself and those who love you." With them by his side, he could overcome anything. Finally, Irin swung his sword 10,000 times. He had done it, and with that, his friends began to fade away, their mission complete. Time flowed onward, until day 1755. In this place, Irin had been reborn. Now, he could confidently face all three of his comrades at once. His speed, power, and reflexes were on another level, a terrifying force to behold. Even in a 3-on-1 battle, he held his ground, even managing to copy their sword techniques mid-fight, though he couldn't quite perfect them with only faint memories from the academy. In the days that followed, they taught him their secret arts, and he used their own techniques to defeat them. That night, as he slept, he saw the Great Gate once more, and beside it, the sword of the mysterious man. This had to be the key to his escape. Confidence surged through him. He had truly changed ever since meeting that man in his dreams. He had always tried to imitate him, to become a copy of that immense power, but that wasn't his path. He had to wield a sword with his own conviction. That was the only way to forge a blade that was truly his. With a deafening roar, the door shattered into pieces. Irin's eyes shot open. He was back in his own bedroom, completely unchanged. Not much time must have passed. He had to see his father and mother. As he emerged, the butler, Michael, saw him and rushed over, tears streaming down his face. The young master had finally returned. It turned out he had been asleep for 5 long years. Irin was stunned. The time in that other world had passed identically to the real one. His parents were safe, overjoyed to see him. His younger sister was now in the Duchy of Saya, studying under a legendary sorcerer named Skina. Though his parents said everything was fine, he could see the sorrow in their eyes. The days he was trapped in that distant place must have been agonizing for them. But in the past 5 years, he declared, "I have learned so much. I've trained harder than anyone." It was now April. "I will participate in the next inter-clan battle." Just then, Kiri returned. She forbade him from joining the battle, declaring she would fight in his place. He had been trapped for 5 years. Was their father trying to send him to his death? "Fight me," she challenged. "Let's see if you're worthy." "Of course," Irin agreed. The two stood ready, but everyone noticed Irin wasn't holding a sword. Instead, he reached out and grasped at the empty air. And suddenly, a blade materialized in his hand, leaving everyone speechless. Irin had truly awakened a sorcery technique. Kiri summoned 3 magic swords that shot towards him. Just blocking the blows made his arms feel like they would shatter. The attack's trajectory was completely unpredictable. He struggled desperately just to defend himself. Finally, Kiri stopped her assault. She decided to trust her brother this one time. Then, she threw her arms around him, crying like a child. Kiri then informed him that a demonkin had appeared about a month ago, with traces found south of their territory. These were beings who gained immense power through demonic pacts, rivaling even the most powerful sorcerers. She wanted to join him, but was worried. But her master stopped her, Skina. They said she was over 50 years old, but her appearance was that of a young woman, a feat only possible through sorcery. She seemed to know exactly what he was thinking, and to his surprise, she teased Kiri about how much she adored her big brother, making her blush furiously. Using that to handle her was a bit much, wasn't it? Skina mused. But I had to be firm to become her master. She then took out a necklace for him. It was an artifact that could detect demonic energy and danger. It could also neutralize most poisons. Kiri and I made this together, she said. Over 5 long years. While waiting for you to awaken, she poured every ounce of her being into this necklace. I've never seen her so dedicated since I took her as my disciple. So please, use it well. Irin could tell she was an incredible master. A few days later, Irin arrived at the Gairon territory, the army's temporary encampment. His presence made the other nobles whisper. So the kid who got caught in a magic barrier actually showed up. And of course, the eldest son of Viscount Finn was there. He would never forget the humiliation from years ago, and he planned to repay Irin 100-fold. Suddenly, the vice-captain of the Twilight Knights, Hibernat, appeared. He told the gathered nobles that it would be better if they didn't participate in the subjugation battle. Shocking everyone, He would only carry out this mission with the forces he brought himself. Viscount Finn tried to object, but was silenced by the vice captain's overwhelming presence. Demonkin are nothing like monsters. My troops and I are armed with unwavering faith and absolute loyalty to our country. Compared to the safety of the continent and the peace of our nation, I have no interest in fighting alongside those who prioritize personal honor. His words struck a chord. Hibernat singled out Irin. Last night, every young noble except for you was practicing their swordsmanship, yet you seem to be resting quite comfortably. Do you have an explanation? Irin answered carefully. I apologize for appearing lazy, sir, but for me, right now, swinging a sword is unnecessary. What those others are doing is not true effort. The vice captain looked intrigued. My reason for joining this war, Irin continued, is to destroy the demonkin and raise the honor of my family. True effort is only achieved when the heart and the action are one. Practicing swordsmanship with a troubled mind cannot be called effort. Immediately, the vice captain gave the order to advance, and he specifically called Irin to ride by his side. The Finns watched with faces twisted in jealous rage, already plotting to take his place. Meanwhile, Irin was explaining something to the vice captain. First of all, I have never killed anyone before. I need to prepare myself for the shock and chaos that will come. My first kill, my second. I realized nothing is more dangerous than a rookie soldier's reckless move. I must remain calm, disciplined, and never become a burden to the expedition. Third, the energy radiating from these demons and their minions is demonic key. I must sharpen my senses to detect and report their presence. The vice captain seemed pleased with my answer, but then Irin felt a demon approaching. From the shadows, a massive demon ambushed them. The vice captain roared for everyone to form up. He positioned the soldiers to handle the smaller beasts, while he prepared to face the demon himself. But in that instant, Irin moved like lightning. With a single, blinding slash, he cleaved the giant demon in two, leaving everyone utterly stunned. When did he become so powerful? But the demon wasn't finished. Its body instantly regenerated and charged at him. A shockwave erupted from its attack, blasting away a huge chunk of the landscape, but it never touched him. Irin didn't retreat. He met it head-on, his sword still sheathed. A blast of pure sword aura erupted, blowing the demon to pieces. Everyone froze. They didn't know whether to call him a monster or a man. It was like watching a player using hacks. The battle wasn't over. They still had to deal with the remaining monsters. The cleanup was swift and efficient. Everyone was safe, and the clients were unharmed. The expedition continued on its path. At the same time, Irin couldn't understand his own actions. The moment he saw those monsters, an uncontrollable rage had surged within him. It was the first time he'd felt such an intense emotion. It was as if he wasn't himself in that moment. Captain Hugh approached him, his face stern. Irin immediately bowed his head in apology for acting without orders. I couldn't control my emotions and acted rashly. But Captain Hugh praised him. You did well. By killing that giant beast, you prevented any major losses on our side. Your first performance was truly impressive. I look forward to seeing more from you. Even Irin's father proudly hugged him. This, however, sent a venomous wave of jealousy through Reen. He was already hatching a despicable plan. Irin presented his glass necklace to the captain, explaining its ability to detect demonic energy even faster than a priest's holy relic. Suddenly, the necklace began to glow eerily. Enemies! They're approaching from the left. Captain Hugh immediately ordered everyone into formation. Set up a defensive line to the left. A horde of monsters burst from the forest. But thanks to Irin's warning, they were annihilated with ease. The captain now had complete faith in the necklace's power. This only deepened the resentment of Viscount Phi and his son. At this rate, they would never be able to compare to Irin's family. That evening, as Irin was eating, his necklace suddenly glowed pitch black. He remembered his sister's warning. The food was poisoned, but the necklace also had a detoxification function. As long as he waited for it to return to its normal color, the food would be safe. He realized someone was trying to assassinate him. It had to be that foolish Viscount and his cronies. Irin decided to handle this quietly, using the necklace to absorb the toxins. But then he discovered something else. Beneath his bowl was a slip of paper with a warning. The food is poisoned. He wondered who this mysterious helper could be. Meanwhile, Jack watched from the shadows. He was the one who had poisoned Irin's meal. After dinner, the captain challenged him to a sparring match to loosen up, needing to gauge Irin's true strength for the expedition. The pressure erupting from the two of them was immense. Their very presence seemed to grow larger, and even the captain wasn't sure he could block Irin's sword. Suddenly, a nearby soldier collapsed, forcing them to stop. The captain called off the match and made a declaration. From now on, Irin could act on his own, without waiting for orders. A man of his caliber had earned that right. That night, Iron pondered. The feeling he got when fighting the giant monster, and when facing the captain, there was slightly different, but fundamentally the same. A burning sensation that dominated his entire body, as if someone else was in control. It was just like the man from his dreams. He thought he had escaped that influence, so why was it happening again? The only difference was that now, the man was angry. The dream had changed. That person had never shown any emotion before. Why was he furious now? Iron couldn't understand it. The moment Reen woke up, he questioned Jack about the failed poisoning. The fact that Iron was perfectly fine baffled him. He ordered Jack to double the dose. At the next meal, Iron's necklace once again glowed black, warning of poison. And just like before, the mysterious note was there to warn him. Their legion was on the move. Suddenly, Iron sensed demonic energy to his left. He instantly dashed forward, his blade a silver flash, cutting down every beast in his path. Even a larger demon was split in two. With the captain coordinating the rest, the monsters were swiftly defeated. The soldiers looked at Iron with pure admiration. He realized his senses were becoming sharper, more potent. He could now detect demonic energy even before his artifact. It had to be the influence of that man. After several failed poisoning attempts, Reen was furious. Jack finally told him the truth. The necklace could neutralize any poison, making their assassination attempts futile. Left with no other choice, Reen decided he had to capture a demon himself to earn glory. Soon, the army arrived at a cave, the demon's base. But as the soldiers stepped inside, the sound of a violin filled the air. The scenery before them began to shift and warp. They were suddenly standing in a grand palace. Iron knew something was wrong. Everyone's acting strange. This must be an illusion, he shouted. And the captain let out a mighty roar that shattered the spell, snapping everyone back to their senses. The final demon finally appeared. She looked entirely human, her power clearly on another level. Except for her crimson eyes, no part of her seemed demonic. To borrow the power of a demon yet retain one's ego. This was the first time the captain had ever seen such a high-class demon. Beside him, the arrogant Reen was already dreaming of defeating her for glory. Heaven itself couldn't save such a fool. The demon began her enchanting music. The captain warned everyone to stay alert, but Reen, ignoring a direct order, charged forward. Her hair blocked his attack with ease. It instantly formed into a massive hand and swatted him aside. Jack lunged, deflecting the blow just in time to save him. But in doing so, Jack was captured by the demon. However, she had no intention of killing him. Instead, she proposed a deal. The life of this handsome and talented knight, for the life of a beautiful and talented woman like myself. A fair trade, don't you think? If you grant me safe passage, I will leave this place. I'll release this knight somewhere I deem safe. At that moment, the Viscount began to speak, prepared to sacrifice Jack for the greater good. Jack, who had risked his life for his young master, was now being discarded like trash. Seeing this, the demon's smile widened as she instantly changed the terms. With lightning speed, the soldiers charged forward to slay the demons, but an old man blocked their path, determined to protect his son. The Baron even summoned his allies, forming a defiant line against Captain Hill's troops. But the Sunset Knights would not be stopped. As the conquering general, "I declare this now," his voice boomed. "I will show no mercy to any clan or individual who dares obstruct our quest to annihilate the demons." This chaos was exactly what the demoness had planned. But then, her eyes landed on a handsome warrior, his concentration absolute. In a single, fluid motion, Iron's sword flashed, cleaving her in two. She could regenerate, but a wound inflicted by his blade was not so easily healed. Desperate, she used a hostage as a shield to buy time, but it was useless. In the next instant, one of her arms was severed from her body. He lunged again, but her demonic hair shot out to block the attack. She thought such a trick could shield her from his blade, a fatal mistake. Iron's assault was relentless. The demon was like a fish on a chopping block. Her regeneration finally failed. Split in two, she still scrambled madly to escape. Not even the captain's legendary speed could keep up, but Iron's blade was faster than fate itself. With one final strike, the demoness was sent to the afterlife. They had won. The crowd erupted, chanting Iron's name. They returned to the Garen territory, the temporary headquarters of the Sunset Knights, the victory feeling almost surreal. A brutal war had ended with 0 casualties, against a powerful foe who used hypnotism, no less. It was all thanks to Iron. Meanwhile, the Viscount was desperately trying to save his own skin, claiming the demon had manipulated him. But without proof, the captain couldn't make any accusations. As Iron rested, Jack approached him to express his gratitude. "You saved me," he said. "When I was taken hostage, nobody else cared if I lived or died. Without you, young master, I would certainly be dead." He then confessed to poisoning Iron's food under his lord's command, but Iron brushed it aside for now. Just then, Yuzu appeared, unable to meet Iron's gaze. The small creature still approached, filled with shame. "If only I had taught you better. Your other powers would have awakened. You wouldn't have been separated from your family for 5 years, and Kirin wouldn't be so sad. It is all my fault." As Irin reached out, Yuzu flinched away. "Don't touch me," it cried. "You'll be cursed with bad luck." It explained that even superstition can become a form of power. If enough people believe in meaningless stories, then they can become reality. Even a being with no power can become real if enough people believe. Magic is created from such belief. It can change the very laws of the world. "If you stay with me, you will surely become unhappy." It tried to flee, but Iron was quicker. He held the cat gently and declared, "From this day forward, the black cat will be my symbol of good luck. My belief is more trustworthy than anyone else's. A black cat that isn't black, but brings good fortune. A black cat with a white belly," they laughed. Irin then told the cat about his 5 years of training in that other world. Yuzu had always been by his side, the white cat who delivered the message during the battle. "That was me in disguise. And I sent you that note." The creature had also noticed that when facing the demon, Iron felt strangely different. It seemed connected to the man in his dreams, a man who despised demons and fiends, a man from 150 years ago. More importantly, that man's will was now influencing Irin's own heart. At that moment, Captain Hill was seething with rage. The other noble families had been swayed by Viscount Gairon's pathetic excuses. Was this act of treason against the royal knights truly going to be swept under the rug? He would absolutely not let this go so easily. The next day, the captain paid a visit to Viscount Fim. "I heard a rather shameful event occurred during the subjugation. Rumor has it, the Gairon family poisoned the food of young Master Pereira." The Viscount froze, denying everything and demanding proof. The captain called Jack into the room, who confessed everything. Having been cast aside like trash, he had no loyalty left. Captain Hill wanted a full confession from the Viscount, or everything you've built will come crashing down. Next, he intended to visit Irin's family to invite him to join the Sunset Knights, but he was too late. Irin had already departed for the legendary 𝒀𝒆�𝒏𝒈 Academy. He was now in a city teeming with magic users. This great metropolis owed its growth to the 𝒀𝒆��𝒈 Academy, which was built right at its center. Irin walked into a tavern. The moment he entered, all eyes were on him. A bald man called out, "Are you also a guest of the 𝒀𝒆��𝒈 Academy?" When Irin confirmed, the entire room erupted in jeering laughter. The owner came over and told him that they were all guests of the academy. Chrono was the ultimate dream for countless swordsmen, and its fame drew warriors from all across the land, hoping to challenge it. Eventually, the academy had to refuse entry to those who wouldn't leave the main gate. In response, they formed groups to slander the academy's name. They claimed that the people of Chrono were all cowards. As a result, a formal visitor reception system was created. Twice a month, on a day arranged by Chrono, they would accept a challenge from anyone who wished to test their skills. That's why everyone there was trying to register as a mercenary, just to meet the standards to participate. The owner led Iron to the basement for a test. He would have to strike a training dummy with all his might to pass. 2 old men nearby began placing bets. "He has to get at least 500 points," one of them wagered. They were immediately stunned as Irin's sword materialized from thin air. With a deafening boom, the dummy didn't even break. It absorbed the entire impact. Iron's score left them even more shocked. Over 10,000 points. He was immediately given the highest rank silver mercenary card. They were shown to a spacious room, befitting his new status. The next day, Irin participated in the visitor reception tournament and immediately spotted a familiar face from his generation. His old acquaintance seemed to have grown much stronger. The young man stepped forward and introduced himself with overflowing confidence. "I am Brat Lloyd of the 27th class, and I will be your opponent today." This was a complete break from tradition. Normally, challengers would face a graduate of the academy. It seemed the school wanted its students to gain experience by fighting outsiders. "I am still a student, so I may not be a worthy opponent," Brat announced. "But if you can defeat me, our seniors will be the ones to face you next." Instantly, a large burly man stepped forward. Challengers stepped onto the stage, but each one was effortlessly defeated by Lance's overwhelming power. Everyone realized they weren't even in the same league. One after another, they were crushed. Soon, no one else dared to challenge him. Just then, Lance spotted a familiar face in the stands. He immediately walked over to talk with Irin. They hadn't seen each other in 5 long years. "It's a shame," Lance said. If you'd come a bit sooner, you could have met Judith and Blackberry. She's already left for training. With Judith, Lance summoned his sword from the void, stunning everyone. This was undeniably magic. At last, Lance was getting serious. He lunged forward with countless strikes, but Aaron blocked every single one. Moreover, Lance noticed something strange. Aaron was using Bre-S's swordsmanship to fight him. He suddenly recognized that uniquely deadly stance and was forced to attack. If he let that slash come out, he knew he wouldn't be able to block it. At the final evaluation 5 years ago, the power of that technique was terrifying. Now, Aaron finally began his counterattack. This time, he was using Judith's sword techniques. Lance was frozen in shock. He had never lost to anyone besides those two. He attacked with frantic madness, driven by the immense pressure. Lance had always strived to become as strong as them. But facing this monster, he still couldn't win. Just then, the fat cat sensed that the old swordmaster was here. The headmaster was overjoyed to see him again. He even mistook the cat for Aaron's pet, which was a huge miscalculation. After all, this was the great Master Meow Yu. The headmaster removed his cloak, wanting to face him in a one-on-one duel. This was the man known as the strongest swordsman on the continent. And now, he was Aaron's opponent. Arn charged forward with his greatest speed. But his attacks were all blocked. They were simply too predictable. For a veteran swordmaster like the headmaster, winning against him would be all too easy. However, the headmaster's own attack was parried. He was surprised that Aaron could use Bre-S's swordsmanship, but it was still full of openings. Aaron was quickly struck by the headmaster's blow. You may use many sword styles, but you don't know how to merge them fluidly. A real battle is not some evaluation test of your offense and defense. Aaron then unleashed Iria's sword art. A colossal power crashed toward the headmaster, but it was still broken with ease. Isn't there something else you haven't shown me? Aaron stood motionless, then unleashed a single slash, a terrifying power that split the arena in two. This sight left every single witness completely frozen. What kind of power was this? The headmaster himself had to use his sword aura just to block that strike. He realized Aaron had finally found his own sword. Your heart is unstable. You must have questions about this. He then told Aaron to follow him. In the headmaster's office, the cat finally introduced himself not as a pet, but as the master who taught Aaron his secret arts. The person beside him was the current vice headmaster, Gara. After hearing the entire story about the swordsman in his dream, the headmaster could only offer this advice. You must find a way to make your sword even stronger. You might even have to wield a blade completely different from the one you use now. Go. Begin your journey to find your answer in the wider world. Aaron made his decision. He wouldn't run away anymore. And so, Aaron's next great journey began. That's the end of part 1. Smash like for part 2, because this series is getting good.